Hey,
Hi,
hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You're Rachel, right?
I'm Rachel. Yes.
Great to meet you. I'm Rob Sanborn.
Hi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we sure
Wonderful.
can. Yeah. So, Rachel, where are you calling in from?
Wales.
Oh, I can't hear. I can't hear anyone.
Oh,
Hmm. Hold on. What is going on with
So,
this?
well, while he gets that ready, what time is it in Wales?
Uh,
it is 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
no, that's a mute.
Nice. So I'm
That means
calling in from
it's
Denver,
4 o'clock
Colorado,
now.
and it is 10 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh, cool.
Hold
Yeah.
on, let me fix this.
I like your necklace. It looks like Batman and Snapchat.
Yeah. I mean, it's meant to be flowers, but I'll go with it. I like it.
So, and welcome to everybody who's joined this meeting.
Sorry about that. Uh,
Can you
can
hear
you hear me?
us? We can hear you. Can you
Oh,
hear us?
that's so weird. I turned on the video, now I can't hear you guys. What?
Hmm.
I
That's
don't know why
weird.
this isn't working. I could hear you guys when I turned off the video.
That's
Oh man.
strange.
Let's see. I guess I should have figured this out beforehand.
Sometimes these things work until you go live, I find. So what's the weather like in Denver?
It's currently quite beautiful, actually. So it's sunny, and it's going to get up to about 65 Fahrenheit today, which
Nice.
is crazy because I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago we had a foot and a half of snow.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and
It's that quick?
the weather in Denver can be a little wild, and it's definitely getting wilder as things change in the world, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, so yeah, we had a foot and a half of snow, and it's mostly gone already. But when it did snow, it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So, hey Dahlia, she's someone in the
Sorry,
audience.
I'm going to go without my pods because for some reason it's not syncing up. So I'm just going to have to talk really loudly.
I can hear you,
Can you hear me? Okay, great.
and you can hear us, so that's good.
Just above a whisper. Now I know why people wear AirPods. But
And for everybody watching, thank you so much for coming, and apologies for the technical
no,
difficulties.
that's totally on me. I should have
Listen,
checked that beforehand. I don't know why yeah, it's weird. But
yeah. Yeah, should we do some quick introductions? Or Rachel, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Rachel Grosvenor. I'm a writing coach and editor and author. I write mainly kind of fantastical novels.
And I guess I will go, and we'll save Eric, who will be the best for last, since it's his interview. I'm Rob Sanborn. I guess I'm the alternate interviewer for this Pass-the-Baton interview. So I previously was the interviewee and the interviewer. And so I'm an author of historical thrillers and other types of thrillers. My first book and most well known is called The Prisoner of Paradise, which is the first of a trilogy. And the third one, which is Master of the Abyss, just came out a couple of months ago.
Very cool.
International dual timeline thrillers. Eric?
oh well, my name is Eric G. I'm a writing coach, a life coach, and I have a book coming out April 16th called The Power of Personality, and it's a nonfiction book on how to understand people better through their personality type. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Exciting.
yeah. Yeah, I like how you're an alternate, Rob. It's kind of like if like the first interviewer breaks their leg or something, like you're supposed to like jump in there. And is that what that means? An alternate?
Or their AirPods don't work, I guess. Right. Yeah, so, we can get a game later, a 3-on-3 game of basketball going. It'll be
I'm down for that.
yeah.
So brilliant. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. So if anyone's not sure, Word Sleuth is essentially a community of writers, as we are writers of all different things. It's a community that is on Instagram. You'll see it up there in the corner that you can follow, and we do stories, which are kind of broadly defined to be like a skit, a poem, or a tale. And they're built up of different words that are shared by the Word Sleuth every week or so, and you can see those words if you follow them on Instagram, essentially. And we do this interview kind of style. It's like pass the baton interview. So last time I was being interviewed, now I'm the interviewer. I think next time I'll probably be the alternate. And so the next person to interview will be Eric. So yeah, Eric, I'm really excited to talk to you about your book, because I love like personality quizzes, all of that stuff. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about it?
Yeah, like basically I coached for a long time. I owned an education company, and when you have an education company that focuses on tutoring kids, tutoring is voluntary, right? It's not like being a teacher where you kind of like hold it over your kids' heads or students' heads that you can fail them on a test. So it was always like, how do you motivate a kid properly, right? And it's like you have to connect with them a certain way. And what I found was that kids and people just have different motivations. We often think that the differences that we have are like superficial, kind of like someone's organized and someone's spontaneous, and that's okay. But what I found is that like our values are different. We value very different things, and since we value different things, we're motivated by different things, of course. And so thus, my personality typing, how it's different than other personality tests would be that there's a strong focus on motivation and like the core value of each person, as opposed to like introversion, extroversion, and all that stuff. I mean, I don't really believe in that. I mean, I do and I don't. I think like energy levels are great, but they're not particularly consistent. I think someone can be very extroverted in one situation and introverted in another situation. And what I found is generally based on context and based on like whatever you value, right? So, I personally, for my personality type, I might be much more extroverted if I'm preaching or like advocating an idea that I really love. But if you get me at the club, it's not like I'm going to be on the dance floor, doing body shots and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I think
so that's kind of like the gist of how I guess my personality typing is different. And we have animals, so you can be an animal, and that's kind of fun. Everyone remembers their animal.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with you, actually. I mean, I say that I'm an introvert. I think I am an introvert because I recharge alone. I need to be alone to recharge. But if you had like a karaoke night, I'd be the first up there grabbing the microphone, and so your classic introvert might not do that.
Do you have
So you're right.
a list of songs?
Yeah.
Do you have a list of songs in your phone where you're like, okay, I'm going to I got this song down. I have like,
yeah. Always
Amy
Shakira.
Winehouse.
Shakira, Hips Don't Lie is always first.
Okay.
Nice.
Can I guess? Actually, are you familiar with the MBTI?
MBTI, no.
Oh, like the 4 letters and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, yes, yeah. So, yes,
okay.
yeah, Myers-Briggs,
well,
yes.
I was just going to try to guess your type, but...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I might be wrong. I'm obviously doing it very quickly, but for fun, I like to do this. Are you an INFJ?
Yeah.
Okay. I just maybe that's showing off a little bit, but that's a little flex. But yeah, that's my thing, is like trying to figure out what people's personality is. So for my animal types, you'd be my animal personality types, you'd be a panda.
A panda. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people might be offended to be a panda, but pandas usually are cool with that.
No, pandas are great. Talk to me about pandas then. I eat a lot of bamboo. But what is it that a panda means?
Well, it generally means so overall their value is like self-identification. Like what do they identify with? What's their I guess self-knowledge would be their motivation. So everything they do is kind of colored by, am I learning more about myself? Am I growing within myself? And then I saw Dolly, but that means we rule. Dolly is a panda too. Also means they're self-loathing. They can maybe hate themselves a little too much, which is why oftentimes they're writers, and they're kind of expressing their ideas. I actually know a panda, and I asked you that karaoke question because she also would be definitely based her energy level would be somewhere where she would not necessarily want to be around a lot of people, but then she has a list on her phone that says all the songs that she's going to hit up on karaoke night. So that's why I asked you the question. I just thought it was funny. Yeah, same personality.
Wait, I have a question about that. I have no idea what animal personality I am. Maybe a liger, but so I also have a list of I love. Okay, first of all, stepping back for a second. As writers, I think probably all of us need to be an introvert to some degree. But I'm like both of you. I'm definitely a full-on extrovert in many situations. And I also love doing karaoke. And I also have a list of songs on my phone. But in my head, I always thought it was because I wouldn't forget them. But you're saying that there's actually sort of a character trait background to doing that?
Oh, for the karaoke thing, that's just more idiosyncrasies that, I mean, certain types can share idiosyncrasies like that. It's just more, that was just my question to more like in terms of confirmation. You know, like someone asked me once, oh, what's my personality? And I was like, I already kind of had a feeling for what they were. So the question I asked was, do you like wine tasting? And they're like, I love wine tasting, big caps. And so I was like, okay, I'm pretty absolutely sure I know what you are now. But it's generally like when you have like kind of like an instinct that's pushing you towards somewhere, then I kind of ask questions to confirm. I think the answer to the question is not necessarily sometimes as important as how people respond. So I work with a lot of students, and you know, the first thing I'll try to do is I'll insult my mother, or like I'll say some joke about my mom, and then I'll see their reaction. And often people react different ways. Oftentimes they'll be offended or maybe a little scared. And then I'm like, okay, I kind of know where you're going. Some will laugh, and that's something different, right? So, anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
To answer Dahlia's question, I would say I'm more Shakira than Britney. But I like
really. Well, it's the two Shakira fans here.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, okay, so Myers-Briggs is comparable. I mean, obviously in the Zodiac as well, they use animals. So, like, for example, I'm Aries, I'm a ram. I often find, though, with the Zodiac that when people say, like, oh, I'm an Aries, people are like, oh, yeah, very fiery. And I'm nothing like that. So, like, I've never felt that I connect with the Zodiac signs myself in that sense. But do you think that your animals are comparable in any way?
I mean, no offense to any fan who's a fan of horoscopes and stuff, but I mean, I'm more of a pragmatist. So it doesn't totally make sense to me that if you're born on a specific month, then you're going to be a certain way. Because I know tons. I mean, I don't really match my personality or my zodiac sign either. People think I'm a Gemini, when I'm not. So I think for me, for my animal personality types, it's more like learning about people. I'm not a big believer in certainty either. So it's not like now I know what you are and you're always going to be this way. And it's more just trying to encourage people to constantly get more and more information about the people around them, including themselves. And then the more information you get, often your perspective on someone might change. And it doesn't mean they've changed. It just really means you've learned more about them and you've discovered like different things, which I think is great. So basically you're doing it based on what they show you and what you see versus like whether someone was born in July or like the Chinese zodiac, whether someone's born in the year of the monkey, you know, like I know a lot of people born in my year, they don't act like what the monkey is supposed to act like. So, yeah.
Interesting. So how do you think it can help us learning about our personality types and other people's personality types? What can we do with that information?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that's important to understand is like, so this is going to get really wonky really fast, but I separate people into 4 packs.
Okay.
And then within those 4 packs, there are 4 animals in each pack. So that means like 16 types, right? If I did the math correctly, 4 times, yeah. And so within each pack, they're motivated by a specific thing. And I'd say about half the population falls into one pack. And so I think that's important for people to realize because I think a lot of the values that are propagated by society are based on that pack because they make up the most amount of people. And they tend to be organized and structured and like they prioritize safety, security, family. And those are all the things that, you know, civilization revolves around, which is great that there's a lot of them. I mean, the only problem is sometimes their motivations, they try to push those on others, or other people just subconsciously go, oh, this is what I should want because it seems like half the people want this. And so I think the first thing that why learning about our personality is really important to the individual themselves is understanding that maybe they have different values and they might want something different with their life, and not to be totally influenced by the stuff around them. Parents, culture, gender, all that kind of stuff. I'm not really a big believer that those are huge influences. I think our gender, culture that we grow up in, whether we're the first child, I think it doesn't really impact us as much as our personality does.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think culture impacts us a lot. And I didn't think that until I went traveling around Asia. And I realized how intrinsically British I am. Like, a lot of my behaviors are what you could just say, well, that person is behaving in a British way. And a lot of my like hang-ups with things that I experienced were because I'm British. So I'm always on time, and I expect like trains and buses to always run on time. In some countries, like in Laos, it was way more laid back. And I personally found that very challenging for myself to deal with because it gave me anxiety because where my culture is not that.
It's interesting because, I mean, not to bring it back to the animal types, but like a panda is most likely to be very anxious when things aren't particularly organized in a way that they are expecting. Like the panda I was talking about, I mean, I know a lot of pandas actually, but for some reason this panda keeps coming up, who also has the karaoke list. She was actually shocked that I would go to a country where I didn't know the language. When I went to Thailand for about a month, and she's like, wow, you'd go there without knowing the language, like, and not having a guide or anything. And I was like, oh yeah, why not? Like, you can figure it out. Also, unfortunately, like everywhere in the world, they speak some modicum of English, which is kind of nice for me, but I guess sucks for everyone else who doesn't speak English. But I think sometimes, like, you're like, let's say a peacock type, and you grow up in a traditional Japanese culture, that might be kind of painful because peacocks love to like hug and they love physical contact. And generally, traditional East Asian cultures, physical touch is not necessarily, it's kind of frowned on. Whereas I had a friend who was a shark. Sorry, I'm throwing a lot of animal types out there, but sharks,
No, I like it.
They're not particularly great they love their personal space. But he grew up Cuban, or he was in a Cuban home. So he was just always just like, God, my family's always trying to hug me. I'm just like, get the hell away. Like, I don't want to, and it becomes where the culture becomes almost a problem to a certain extent. If you're an animal that doesn't fit in it. If you are an animal that does, then you're like, okay, this is great. This is perfect. Like, I'm like right in my home, this home. So
Interesting. So being a panda fits my feelings of what it is to be British, I suppose.
Well, I'm actually curious. What does it feel? What is it to be British to you?
We are, as much as I think sometimes that I'm being very, I'm sharing a lot or things like that. We don't share much. It takes, we all have an outer layer that you have to get past to get to know the real us. We're very polite and formal as well. We're very formal people. And actually, I mean, I have always gotten on really well with Americans. And I think it's because Americans seem to me a little bit more laid back, a little bit more at ease. And I find that I'm able to open up a little bit quicker with them than I am with other British people. That's always interested me. That might be that I'm meeting animals, I suppose, that work with the panda. I don't know.
I mean, this is maybe confirmation bias, but it does kind of fit a little bit. Pandas are generally reserved, but then because and this is just speaking for theoretically and pandas in general, they have like a deep well of feelings and ideas about things, but oftentimes, especially they grow up in a very rigid environment, they might feel like those values are a little bit different and those ideas might not necessarily be appreciated. So they hold it in until someone opens them up and says, hey, like, what's going on? And then, so in a laid back situation, they might be more likely to open up.
So, Eric, do you believe that people are born with their character traits?
I don't, if I don't know an answer, then I don't try to pursue it in the sense, like, I don't really know. I know they're probably doing studies on that where like the brain patterns and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not a psychiatrist, even though that'd be kind of fun to do that. But I'm more like based on observational things. And I guess it's kind of like, I mean, what people think about religion, or what probably I feel about religion. Like, does it really matter how the world was created? It's probably more important to figure out a great way to live in it. And I feel that way with personality. Like, I don't really know if people are born with it or not. I will say, like, you know, you see young kids and some really show themselves at a pretty early age, but sometimes it's based on the personality type too. Some personality types are just more reserved. They're less likely to show it quickly, and others, you're like, it's like very clear, you know, like I always say, you know, that kid in school who's always like, okay guys, like, this is the assignment. When you get put into group assignments, like, this is what we're gonna do, like, you know, this is what you're gonna do, like, that's pretty clear what their personality type is.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So we have a question from the audience. Dahlia asked Eric, I believe, what do you think of Jane Austen's novels?
That's a loaded question, because she knows I'm not a fan. I know Dolly, and she knows I'm not a huge fan of Jane Austen's novels.
She set you up.
Yeah, she set me up for that. They're okay. So I will say this. It's actually a great question, though, because I do believe, like, writers, you know, they always say write what you know. And I do think writers tend to fall into categories based on their personality type just because of what they know. And Jane Austen would be considered, like, her pack would be a gatherer pack. And gatherers are really good at knowing society, knowing its rules, knowing the ins and outs, the small details. And I do think that that's kind of what she specializes in, right? Like Pride and Prejudice, Emma. I mean, it's all about comedies of manners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, versus like someone who I really like, Charlotte Bronte,
Yeah.
and who is Charlotte Bronte. Oh no, sorry, Jane Eyre is a panda, but the character. But Charlotte Bronte is a little bit less about manners and more about like inner feelings and introspection, and a lot moodier. Well, all the Brontes, I guess, are a little moody, but
yes.
So I guess it's kind of cool, like what our personality type kind of pushes us towards certain things.
Interesting. So what's the rarest personality type?
I have percentages in my head, but obviously they're kind of like loose, because oftentimes when they have people take tests like this, it's in college, and that's not a particularly good indicator, because college obviously is a select few people. Certain personality types are not going to want to go to college as much as others. Others will flourish in college, so there might be more of them. So I would say there are certain types, or maybe 2%. Like a panda is like only about 2 to 3% of the population. What I do is, within the packs, I call them hunters, gatherers, shamans, and smiths, kind of like a medieval village. And so you can kind of guess where there's more, or who there's more of, based on like, what do we need more of? Do we need more gatherers? Probably. So there are probably more gatherers in life. Hunters are probably second. We need a lot of them, but hunters, of course, hunting is a dangerous profession, so they die. And hunters in our world, or our society now, tend to do dangerous professions as well. They might be firemen, they might be deep sea fishermen, they might be jobs that take a lot of risk, which is right up their alley, but of course they're dangerous. So, and you don't really need too many shamans or smiths, right? You only really need one smith to make the tools, and then the hunters use them. And you really need only one shaman to tell you that it's going to rain, and then the gatherers gather the harvest. So, anyway.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, Eric, tell us about your book, especially for the people who have joined more recently since we started.
So the book is called The Power of Personality. I keep repeating that because my publicist tells me I should say The Power of Personality as much as possible. But in general, it's basically a guidebook to teach people to be the test. Because I found that most personality books, they have a test in the beginning, but it's kind of like a cookie cutter, 70-question test. And then the whole book is a whole lot of prescriptions, right? Like, oh, now you know that you're this, so do this, do that. But I found like Einstein has that quote where he's misquoted, because I don't think he actually said this, but I do mention in the book because I love the quote, where he said, 90% of our time should be focused on finding the question and understanding the question, and like 10% of the time should be solving it. And I feel that same way with like personality and understanding people. Like, we should spend more time on really understanding someone first before we decide, oh, okay, now that I know they're like this, I should do this. So the entire book is basically teaching people how to be the test and figure out what people are based on my methodology. And I try to use a lot of pop culture references, because I know this stuff can get really wonky really fast and kind of boring. And I use a lot of like personal experiences working with students and just personal experience with actual people, like other people. So yeah, that's the book basically.
And you said it's coming out on April 16th, right?
It does come out April 16th in bookstores. It's available now for anyone who wants to pre-order it. It's available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all the Target, and, you know, I guess wherever people order books.
Yeah.
But,
And so who's the target audience? What type of person, it's sort of a loaded question. I'm not asking like what type of animal person should buy the book, but maybe I am. But yeah, who is the target audience? Like who?
much like your personality type, Rob. No, it's very practical. Yeah. You know, I know they always tell you to never say everyone. So I won't say everyone, but it really is for everyone. But I do think like the people who'd be most interested are people who are feeling maybe like that they're starting to question whether the values that maybe they've been brought up with are different than what they're feeling on the inside. And I think that's really common. I have an 11-year-old student who she told me she wants to be a vet. And I was just like, no, you're never, I didn't say this out loud, but in my mind, I'm like, you know, you're never going to be a vet. You know, I just know it from her personality. That's just not what she wants. And then, you know, obviously delving into it, I'm like, oh, she just really likes dogs. And so probably her parents are like, you like dogs? Oh, okay. You know what you should be? You should be a vet, you know? And so after figuring out their personality type, they've actually decided, oh yeah, you know what? Like, actually I don't think I want to be a vet. I don't want to go through those years of education. And so now it's kind of nice because now I can go like, oh, she can ask like, oh, what jobs would a dolphin be good at? And I'm like, oh, they'd be good at this and that. And it kind of matches what she's already doing. So sorry, that was a long answer, but basically it's targeted towards people who maybe aren't feeling like they're on the right path. And so hopefully it'll get them on the right path, or at least it'll help them find their anchor. I'm a big believer in finding your anchor first, know what you are. And then once you do that, then you can know maybe your inherent weaknesses and work on those a little bit, like borrow from other animal types. You know, don't become those animal types, but maybe borrow them or borrow from them. But know yours first. Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting. I'd say that most jobs that I've started have given me a personality test to do.
Oh, interesting.
So I guess it could also be used in that sense, because most places that I've worked have given me that first, and then we've had talk about what's important to me at work, you know? So I guess you know how to manage somebody once you know personality.
Yeah.
Wait.
I've given a lot of talks, not a lot, but several, let's say, talks at companies, and that's usually their focus. It's funny, you give these talks and the focus is like, oh, how can you work with people better? And then at the end, when I ask, do you guys have any questions? The very first question is always, okay, that's great, but based on my animal type, who should I be hooking up with? Like, that's the number one question that's asked after those. But so it can be for all those things, you know, even though I'm not a big believer that there's a soulmate, I'm more like, you know, personality types help us figure out what our potential conflicts are going to be with other personality types, and we just have to be okay with those and try. And in work, obviously focus on the strengths. And if you're in a romantic relationship, you just got to be okay with weaknesses. Otherwise, you probably want to be in another relationship, right? But
Rachel, I have some questions for you about that. So first of all, is it common in the UK for there to be personality tests in the workplace? And my second question is, they gave you these personality tests after you were hired, but at the very beginning of the job?
Yeah. So in my experience, it is common. It's happened to me in retail as well as in working at universities in different departments. So it's usually the Myers-Briggs test. And then we've kind of talked about what other people are and things like that. And it's always after I've got the job.
That's fascinating. Talk about a cultural difference, my God. I mean, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never heard of anyone getting a personality test, probably period, in America. I've never gotten.
I agree. I've never gotten. When I had my company, we did.
Yeah, and what's so interesting to me about this is that you get it after you're hired. So I feel like in the States, it's almost like your interview or series of interviews, if you will, in your resume or your CV is kind of maybe not the personality test, but you know, it's sort of what the employer is kind of looking for the position, but never you get a personality test, especially after I could see it happening like before you're hired to make sure you're the right fit, but I find it absolutely fascinating that you would get hired and then they would give you the personality fit to see where, like what's so interesting to me about this and why I'm trying to wrap my head around this is because it seems like you'd be interviewing for a specific role.
Yeah.
So then what does the personality test accomplish after you've been hired?
So it helps your manager understand how they can lead you better.
Huh.
So for me, the biggest, and you know what, I'm self-employed now, I work by myself. And the thing that I miss most and the thing that motivated me most at work was other people. I miss other people. I love an office camaraderie. I go to work. I would go to the office, go to work for the people, really. And that's what motivates me. So if your manager knows that, then they kind of give you jobs. They know that you'll excel in different sections where you get to work with others and you do like teamwork and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. We should try that here in the States. I love that.
That would be
It's really interesting.
That would be great. I mean, I think of like there's a personality type that's called the beaver type, and they're the type that does all the dirty work. And it's funny because knowing that, it tells you, like, let's say they love washing dishes. Well, they don't love it. They just they'll always do it though, because they're like, oh, this is the type of stuff I do, right? You never want to take that away from them. You never want to go, oh no, I'll do it for you today. And then they're like, no, I got it, you know. But all they want is for you to say, you know, I appreciate you. I love that you do the dirty work. And then they'll keep doing it. And I think that's probably why it would be great to take that kind of test in the States, right? Because people will know how to motivate people better. You know? But
yeah, absolutely. It surprises me that that's not a common thing there. It does.
Not only not common, I don't think it exists, period, as far as I know. I don't know, maybe we can...
Yeah, it would be great for people to, I mean, I tend to deal with junior high students. That's actually my wheelhouse in terms of the type of, or the usual age range I usually work with. And it's funny because oftentimes kids are told to take these jobs, or that they should go to these jobs because they're safe. I had my cousin's kid, I was just recently talking to him on New Year's while we were shucking oysters, funny enough. And he is just about to graduate from pharmacy school. And I was just like, oh, great. Like, what do you want to do? You know, like, what are you ready to do? He's like, I don't know. He's like, all I know is that I just don't want a job where I'm going to have to be in the same place all the time. And I was like, oh boy, did you pick the wrong school? Pharmacy school? You know? And I was like, well, you know, like maybe you could go into like the business side of it, maybe like pharmaceutical sales. That would be great. And he is like that. He's a hustler. You know, he'd be a great hustler. He'd get to travel, you know, you'd make good money if you do well. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know if I want to waste the years or the knowledge that I learned through pharmacy school. And I was like, yeah, but you only have one life, so would you rather waste that by doing something that you really hate? Like, and he was like, oh yeah, that's a good point, I guess. You know, I wish more kids would like, or at least just adults too, would just learn what they really want. Yeah. I think it'd make the world better.
Absolutely, and I think it's very easy to fall into professions if you don't have a clear image of what you want.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then if it's a safe profession where you're getting, you know, health insurance and, you know, like it's kind of hard to go away from that, but then you end up living, what did Thoreau say, like a quiet life of desperation? And I don't think anyone wants that.
No.
But, yeah. Anyway.
Got a little bit of background noise there. Where that's coming from?
Hello?
Nudge.
Oh.
So, Eric, are you working on something new now that the Power of Personality is set for release imminently?
I'm sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
Are you working on something new, maybe a follow-up?
You know, that's well, if this book sells a gazillion copies, then it'd be great. So then I could, you know, pitch my second book to my publisher. I mean, the obvious answer would be the follow-up book would be something based on like romantic types, because everyone wants to know that. That's the first question people ask, and I just didn't have enough time to write much about that in this book because it's mainly how to understand people, and not necessarily super specific. So I would love to start writing a book based on that. Like if you're a stag, you're with this type, this is how you guys are gonna get along. This is how you guys are not going to get along. I generally tend to focus on the negative things when I type people. Like with pandas, I always ask the question, are you self-loathing? And generally pandas are like, yeah, how'd you know?
I'm not.
You're not self-loathing at all?
No.
You're a really healthy panda. You must have had like a, you know, but almost all of them will be like someone like, yeah, I guess so, a little bit. Generally because most people don't accept, I mean, everyone, the confirmation bias is such where if you say, oh yeah, you're this type, so that means you're going to be good at this, this, and that, everyone's going to say yes, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, of course, I'm great at this. Yeah, of course I'm athletic because I played on my JV basketball team in 9th grade, you know? But if you say the negative things about people's personality type, then the only people who claim it is if it's true. So if someone's like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I'm a little rigid sometimes, you know? So.
We've got a comment there. Pandas are terrible partners.
Pandas are terrible partners.
That's what it says
Oh,
in the comment there. Is that true?
Only specific pandas. No, actually, pandas make great partners depending on the person. I will say pandas are probably the best listener of all the types. They genuinely listen. Like, you know, some people will listen but not necessarily really pay attention to what you're saying. Like
Yeah, they don't do active listening.
What'd you just say?
Thank you, Rob. Prove my point. No. I'll admit I'm not. My type is not always the best listener compared to a panda, but you know. Yeah.
What is your animal?
I am a baboon, which is not a flattering animal. Which is why people are like, I don't like my animal. I'm just like, hey, I do not have a flattering animal either, but it kind of fits. Baboons are kind of loud, and they can be kind of. I think of like Rafiki in The Lion King, kind of like preachy and like an advocate. I will say that baboons fall under the same pack as pandas, so we share like the same overall goal, which is self-identity and reflection and that kind of thing. I think baboons are maybe a little bit more aggressive, and we're a little bit flakier, and we're a little bit more maybe spontaneous.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
And then another question is, who are the funniest partners?
Oh, well, I guess it depends on what people think are funny. I think a lot of comedians, like, it depends. Like if someone's like Chevy Chase or Kevin Hart, like if they like a lot of pratfalls, then they tend to be the animal type would be a peacock. They're really good at controlling their body, so they're great at physical humor. Like maybe like Chris Farley or Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm.
But most stand-up comics tend to be chimpanzees or baboons because they're kind of like subversive, and usually their humor is based on making fun of something that's already established. So
interesting.
So how many animal type personalities are there?
There are 16, kind of like the Myers-Briggs. It just goes at them or finds them in a different way, but it's still 16. So, yeah.
Cool.
Brilliant.
And of course, animals have their own personality.
Yeah, I try to find. Yeah, I mean maybe dogs tend to be like what you'd imagine a dog type would be, even though we don't actually have a dog type. That's my student was like, "Is there a dog type?" I'm like, "No, unfortunately, there's not." But you're a dolphin, so she liked it. Yeah.
Dogs definitely have their own distinct personalities.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think in general, dogs are motivated by different things, unless you count food. But that's kind of a base motivation for all of us, I think. So.
Yeah.
But yeah. Really, the whole concept of the gist of the book would basically be try to strip down everything and strip all the outer wear and try to find what's the core within each person, and then hopefully that kind of guides us the right way. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm definitely going to pre-order. Yeah, and I've also noticed that in Britain it's available in Waterstones at W.H. Smith, which is good. These are our big bookshops.
Is that like the Barnes and Nobles of Britain?
Waterstones is the Barnes and Nobles of Britain, yeah. And then W.H. Smith would be like kind of a little like Target.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have W.H. Smiths, especially in airports.
Right.
At least they used to. So Eric, talk to us about your publishing journey.
I'm sorry, my publishing
journey.
My earning?
Journey.
Oh, I was like, journey. Sorry, I'm also not an earpod. Sorry about that. So my earpod technical difficulties. Like it was funny because I was actually writing. So my background, or at least my educational background, is in screenwriting. And so I was, like after I owned my education company for a decade, I kind of shuttered that and said, oh, you know what? I'm going to try the screenwriting thing again. And I started writing pilots and trying to get into those fellowships and such. And, it's difficult. And, you know, I joined a writers group that I know, Rob, you were a part of, and in LA. And I met a lot of friends there, and we'd go to bars afterwards, because of course that's what writers should do, is write and then drink. And then, you know, people would ask about the animal types. And so people would just start talking about that a lot. And a friend of mine who's the same panda was like, you know, you should write a book on this. Because you like notice everyone's like talking about this and they want to know what their type is. I'm like, oh no, you know, I'm going to like, no, I got to keep writing my pilots about rabbits that are sex addicts. That's what I got to do. And so that's what I did. And then what ended up happening was she actually put the ideas and parodied it in the television show that she writes for. And so I was like, oh gosh, like if it actually ended up on Apple TV, I think I probably should pitch it as a book, you know. And of course I use that in the pitch. It's like featured on Apple TV's Mythic Quest, you know, like. But really, it just showed me that I think it could have some mainstream appeal.
Yeah.
And so that's when I, you know, and then I did the whole process of, you know, writing the book, and then, you know, pitching it and finding an agent and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, my journey was kind of like accidental, probably.
Very interesting. I didn't know that you were a screenwriter. I was about to say also, because my writing background, and I guess you could say writing educational background, is also in screenwriting. So,
Right.
yeah, I did the professional program at Writers Boot Camp in Santa Monica. Yeah.
How did you enjoy? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
I will say that the difference between I do think that having the screenwriting background is kind of nice in that you're just used to getting feedback and used to, I guess, collaborating, because I mean, even though you're writing a script by yourself, but I feel like there's just more feedback, or maybe people who give critique to screenplays are just more open to giving feedback. But I've always been a big fan of the feedback process.
Huge difference is, unless your movie is made, right, you don't necessarily get the reviews on the script in the same sense that you're going to get them once your book is released out into the world. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, I guess the nice thing about writing is, like, at least you get something out there, right? You can say, like, look, this is it, you know, like you say, I wrote a bunch of scripts. People are like, okay, great. What's your script on? You know, is it another rom-com? Even though I guess there's not a lot of rom-coms anymore, but, you know.
Yeah. It's important to remember as well that reviews are for readers, not for writers.
So I read that in Threads post today.
Really?
And I had not actually heard that before, and I don't know if I really agree with that.
Okay.
I read every single review I get because I want to know, you know, what's resonating with readers.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and what's working, what they like, what they don't like, you know, make sure I hit those marks with my next book.
Interesting. I feel differently about it. So I do think that, for me, reviews are for the readers. So if you liked this, you might like that. And, you know, this is what I didn't like so much about this. As the writer, though, I feel like, well, this is what I've written, and I've edited it, and I've done my job. And there you go. And I don't need to know now what you think of it because it's out into the world. Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense based on you guys, your different personality types.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I probably would split down the middle and just say, like, yeah, I think it just depends. I think if you're getting too far away from your own voice, then that becomes a problem, right? If, like, the critique is making you become less of yourself. But, I mean, sometimes there's very valid critique where people are like, wow, you have too many dick jokes in there. I'm like, okay, I'll take some out. You know, like, I think that helps a little bit.
I will say that it's hard not to check reviews. Like, I liken it to having a chocolate cake in the fridge. And I find it very hard not to check reviews. I do.
Can you just, like, check the good ones? Or at least, like, skim them really quickly for positive words and just read those?
Blur my eyes.
Yes, yeah.
Well, the worst is if you put a low-star review, a low-star rating, I mean, without an actual written review, because then you don't know.
Yeah.
The real worst thing is when people give you, I'm fortunate that most of my reviews actually have been very positive, but a few bad ones have come in, and it drives me nuts when someone says like like their review seems like they read a completely different book. They just didn't get it, or they didn't finish it, or whatever this may be. But that's not fun.
Right. It's kind of like when you're getting feedback, right? Like, certain feedback is great. Like, I love negative feedback, or I guess constructive feedback would be a better way to put it. But sometimes, what do they say? Never pitch a problem. And that really does bug me when you get feedback and someone's like, "Yeah, I just didn't like this." It's like, well, have the courtesy to tell me why you didn't like it, and maybe pitch me an idea that might make it better. Because I love that. Like, I love actionables. I'm like, yeah, if preferable, I'll just write what your suggestion was right into it, because I'm lazy and I'm just gonna like write it in there. And sometimes those suggestions could really help like spark ideas, at least in the feedback process. I know reviews, like Rachel was saying, are for the reader, so they don't necessarily. I mean, I guess it's okay if they pitch a problem, but some of them are just kind of like, if it's like a generalization, like just like, oh yeah, I didn't like it because I don't know why, but it just wasn't for me. Seems like not a particularly useful review. But.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on what that person reads as well. Like, my work is kind of similar to Terry Pratchett, humorous. But if somebody's not into that, that's okay. Like, it might not be their thing. I mean, I've been very lucky with the reviews that I've received, that I've seen, are very positive, which is great. But yeah, I try not to check now.
Well, my feeling is that if somebody leaves a review about a genre that they don't typically read, don't leave the review.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. So sometimes I'll read books that my clients read because I want to know what is informing them. And if they're reading something and they're like, actually, this really speaks to me, I'm like, I'll read it too. But they might not be necessarily something that I would pick up in a bookshop. But I didn't enjoy it for certain reasons because it's not a genre that I usually read. I don't usually read like romance. I wouldn't review it poorly based on that, but
I guess it's a lot like if you go on Yelp or something and you read some of those reviews on restaurants, they're terrible, right? Because they're just like a lack of knowledge. It's like the equivalent of like going to a Chinese restaurant and going like, wow, I didn't really think this was particularly authentic food because they didn't have orange chicken or something, right? Or like, oh my gosh, like this particular restaurant was terrible because the food was too spicy, and they're going to like like a Yucatan restaurant. Like, it's like, know where you're going, know what you're getting, right?
Yeah.
But those Yelp reviews where they're like, it was raining and I was in a fight with my boyfriend and we had to wait 10 minutes for the table and it out 1 star.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess everyone, I don't know if anyone's ever seen this documentary. It's called, I'm from LA and I'm in LA right now, so of course I'm gonna love this documentary. It's called City of Gold, and it's a documentary about Jonathan Gold, who is a really famous food critic who was here. And he was actually the first food critic to ever win the Pulitzer Prize. And his writing is fantastic. Like, his food reviews are just like another level of like, he's mentioning like Snoop Dogg and Zen Buddhism in the context of reviewing restaurants. And in this documentary, he talks about that, where like the role of the critic has gone by the wayside because now everyone feels like they're expert. Everyone feels like they're a critic, and if you use the word toothsome in a review, then it makes you feel like, oh yeah, I know about food. Where it's like the real critics, it's kind of, they are helpful because they really are great arbiters of what is good, I think. But it's because they put in the work to do that, like get that knowledge base, I don't know. I don't think anyone loves being critiqued, especially from someone who hasn't done it, right? Isn't that like the whole Teddy Roosevelt quote about being the man in the arena? I don't think anyone who's in the arena likes people outside the arena critique on how to fight.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we should talk about your word improv story.
Oh, okay. I do not have it. I do not have it on me because it's on my phone, and I'm using my phone for this threads. But let me see. Can I? Yeah, we can talk about it. I don't. I remember using the words, and I think I wrote a poem, a free verse poem.
You did. I have it. I have it. Do you have it at all, Rob?
I don't. Well, yeah, I don't.
I saw Rob's critique of my poem, and he said it was pedantic, and I was just like, oh damn, okay, I got to fix that now. But yeah, it was fun to do things like that.
For you on Amazon.
Yeah, it's not gonna be purchased. Yeah, it was fun doing that because it's like I've never used any of those words probably before, and so I was like, poetry. That seems like something not in my wheelhouse, so might as well try it.
Yeah. So shall I read it? Shall I read your entry?
Oh yes, please. Sorry for making you do that. I think I'm supposed to do that, but I don't have access to
Don't
it.
worry.
And you'll probably read it far better than I would.
I don't know about that. Hopefully, I can pronounce all of the words because. Let me just stand it out my head because one of them trips me up. Here you go. I'm going to write it here, and you guys tell me how you would pronounce this because it's just a word that I would have not used.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is it the one that sounds like lotion? Like should be like a way to describe lotion?
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see that in there?
Oh yeah, lugubrious.
Lugubrious. Lugubrious. Very nicely said. Okay.
I don't know how that's how you pronounce. I pronounce things wrong all the time.
It's tricky when you face words that you haven't said before properly. Okay, so a precocious child born wild, she asked what it meant to feel blue or lugubrious, like a winter brumation brewing anew. For she is a viper beguiled by smooth pipers, cantankerous banter, and mild wonder. Our blunders are shared, bare and true. We care solely for each other, the sonder of me and you.
Well,
Nice.
I used all the words. That
I
was
think
my
that's
goal.
lovely.
Well, thanks. I was just trying to rhyme as much as I could.
No, yeah, and it works.
I was like, how do you rhyme? Sonder is a great word, by the way. I don't know who decided to put that in there. I didn't know what that meant. I was like, oh, this is like pretty cool. And then I realized it's like kind of like a new word, Sonder, apparently. But anyway, I thought that was a cool word.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job. Okay, fantastic. So your book comes out on April 16th.
April 16th. Available for pre-order now.
Excellent.
And hopefully it's in a bookstore near everyone. Even though you never know with indie bookstores, they get to choose whatever they want. But I do know it'll be in the big box stores. So.
And are you doing signings?
You know, I'd love to do signings. I might have been a little too late because that's apparently part of my personality type is not really planning things ahead of time. So now, I mean, I think a lot of bookstores have some long lead times. I will have like at least one event here in LA where I'll, you know, I own a creative space, so you know we'll have a party here. You know, but yeah, I'll be doing different things, going on different podcasts as well, and kind of like talking about as much as I can.
Yeah, well, enjoy it. It's a really fun time.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, I don't love self-promotion, which might seem weird because I do like to talk. So it's one of those like, you know, I gotta just suck it up and stop being such a baby, you know.
You got to do it. Enjoy it. Embrace it. Have fun with it.
And the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, I like. The nice thing about talking about personality types is I love when people ask about themselves because I love talking about other people, or at least saying, oh, you know, like you're a panda or you're this, so maybe you might do this, and that to me is fun because it's just right what I'm used to doing with students. But talking about myself is never fun, but I'm sure everyone feels that way too. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything coming up or recently?
Sorry?
Do you have anything coming out? Maybe my mic is the problem. Do you have anything coming out soon, or have anything you've released recently?
I do. So, why I have some just behind me. Yeah, The Finery came out in August. The Finery is a fantastical dystopian read. It's about a 100-year-old woman with taking down a totalitarian government with a wolf sidekick.
Does the wolf talk to her, or is it, or no? Oh,
no.
Okay.
But it's very, you know, the narrator is omniscient. You can very much understand what he's thinking and doing. It's about tyranny and it's about tyrannical governments, and yet it's funny and lighthearted. So, you know, if you're confused about how those two things work together, grab a copy.
Check it out.
What's the Woody Allen quote? Even though I don't know if we're allowed to quote Woody Allen anymore, but the quote from Crimes and Misdemeanors where he says, comedy is just tragedy plus time. So, yeah. tragic, but wait a while and then it's funny.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. Lovely. So you'll next time one of these happen, you'll be doing the interviewing.
I guess
Eric?
I will. Okay. Yeah.
But
And
best
you'll.
of luck.
Oh, well, thank you.
Rachel, it's been a pleasure to know you. Eric, great chatting. And congratulations on the release of The Power of Personality, and best of luck with it.
Oh, thanks. Great talking to you guys.
Lovely.
Absolutely.
And is there somewhere we can find you online? Is there, you have like a website?
Yeah, I'm so bad with social media, even though I obviously have an Instagram, but I don't really use it much. Utopia, projectutopia.com is the best way. That's my website. That's what goes into our creative space, and it goes into my life coaching page, and then obviously the book page. And then the Instagram is called The Power of Personality, and I just wanted to mention that because I wanted to say the title of the book again, The Power of Personality. But yeah, the best way to find me is on my website, Project Utopia. And Utopia with a Y-O-U, like YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks, guys. It was great talking to you guys.
It was fun. Cool. Bye, everybody.
Bye.